There is a particular cruelty that football reserves for some of its greatest players, not injury, not defeat, not the passage of time. Something more arbitrary and in many ways more frustrating than any of those things. The cruelty of the qualifying campaign. To be elite, to be genuinely world-class, to be the kind of player that every club in the world would want and every fan watches, and yet to find yourself, every 4 years, watching the World Cup on television. Because your country finished third in a group, or lost a playoff on penalties, or simply did not have enough players around you to make the qualification system work in your favor. And then there is a different kind of waiting, the waiting of youth, of being born at exactly the wrong moment in the cycle, old enough to watch, not yet old enough to play. The 2026 World Cup in North America changes everything for 5 players in particular. 5 world-class footballers who have spent years waiting, years watching, years wondering whether the moment would ever come. Welcome to everything about football. These are the elite stars playing in their first ever World Cup in 2026, and why this tournament means more to them than it does to almost anyone else on the planet. Erling Haaland, Norway, age 25, shirt number 9. Let us begin with the most extraordinary case of all. Erling Haaland is 25 years old. He plays for Manchester City, the dominant club side of his era. He has scored more Premier League goals faster than any player in the history of the competition. He has been nominated for the Ballon d'Or. He has won every major club honor available. He has 55 international goals and 48 appearances for Norway, a goal-scoring record for his nation that makes him statistically the most prolific international scorer of his generation relative to appearances. And until the summer of 2026, he had never played at a World Cup. Norway missed the 2022 tournament in Qatar. They finished third in their qualifying group, behind the Netherlands and Turkey, despite having the most dangerous center forward in the world in their squad. Haaland was 22 years old at the time. He sat at home while the rest of the world played. He was born in July 2000, 2 years after Norway's last World Cup appearance in 1998. He grew up watching Norway fail to qualify over and over again. He carried the weight of a nation's absent tournament history, with every international cap. And then came 2026 qualifying. Haaland scored 16 goals in 8 qualifying matches, the highest qualifying tally of any player in any continent for this tournament, including 2 goals in a 4-1 victory over Italy in Milan, the win that eliminated the 4-time world champions from their own group. He scored in every single qualifying match. Over a year passed between the last time he failed to score for Norway and the end of the campaign. Norway are in Group 1 alongside France, Senegal, and Iraq. The group game against France will pit Haaland against Kylian Mbappe, arguably the greatest individual clash of the entire group stage. The whole world will be watching. And Haaland, 25 years old, competing at his first World Cup, will be the most dangerous striker in the tournament. The wait was 25 years in the making. It is over. Martin Odegaard, Norway, age 27. Shirt number 8. If Haaland is Norway's firepower, Odegaard is their brain. And his story of waiting is, if anything, even longer. Martin Odegaard is 27 years old. He is the captain of Arsenal, one of the most technically complete central midfielders in Europe, and arguably the most important player in the club's recent renaissance. 2 Premier League titles under Mikel Arteta, a consistent Champions League presence, and a personal level of performance that has placed him consistently among the best midfielders on the planet. He wears the number 8 for Norway and has been their captain for several years. Like Haaland, he has waited a very long time for this moment. Norway were not at the 2022 World Cup. They were not at 2018. They were not at 2014. The last time Norway played at a World Cup in 1998, Odegaard was 5 years old. He has essentially spent his entire adult football life in a Norway squad that qualified for nothing. And yet the career itself has been extraordinary. As a child prodigy, Odegaard joined Real Madrid at 16, the youngest signing in the club's modern history, a story that made headlines across the football world. The expectations were enormous, the pressure was intense, and after loan spells that allowed him to develop at his own pace, he arrived at Arsenal and became exactly what those who believed in him always thought he could be. He is now one of the finest midfielders in European football. At 27, fully formed and playing at the peak of its powers, he arrives at his first World Cup not as a prospect but as a proven elite performer. Norway will need Odegaard to control games from midfield, to connect the defensive block with the offensive threat of Haaland, to be the conductor of everything they try to do on the ball. The two of them together, Number 8 and number 9, the brain and the muscle, represent something Norwegian football has never produced before. A genuine pair of world-class players in the same international squad at the same time. In 2026, for the first time, the world gets to see what that combination looks like on the biggest stage. Florian Wirtz, Germany, age 22, shirt number 10. Some absences from World Cups are the result of national team failure. In Wirtz's case, it was a personal catastrophe that intervened at the worst possible moment. Florian Wirtz is 22 years old and plays for Liverpool, having moved from Bayer Leverkusen for a transfer fee of £116 million in the summer of 2025, one of the largest transfer fees in football history. He wears the number 10 shirt. He is an attacking midfielder of rare technical ability, creative, direct, capable of playing in behind or deeper, of scoring from distance and of finding a final pass that nobody else in the stadium saw. He was not at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, because in March 2022, 19 years old and already one of the most exciting young talents in European football, he ruptured the anterior cruciate ligament in his left knee in a Bundesliga match against Cologne. The injury kept him out for 10 months. The World Cup came too soon. He was left at home while his Germany teammates competed in Qatar. He has spoken about that period directly and honestly. He was in constant communication with Germany coach Hansi Flick throughout the tournament. He wanted to be there, he could not be there. Now, 4 years later, he will be. Germany are in Group E. Wirtz, wearing number 10, will be Germany's most creative and technically gifted player, the one opposition managers will study most carefully before every match. He is 22 years old, playing in his first World Cup after a wait that began with a torn knee ligament on a Tuesday afternoon in Leverkusen. Luis Diaz, Colombia, age 28, shirt number 7. Luis Diaz is perhaps the player whose story best illustrates just how brutal the mathematics of World Cup qualification can be. Colombia did not qualify for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. They finished 6th in CONMEBOL qualifying, on the same points tally as Peru, who did qualify via the Intercontinental Playoffs, and just 1 point behind Ecuador, who qualified directly. 1 point. 1 goal in 1 game, somewhere in a grueling 18-match qualifying campaign, going differently, and Luis Diaz is at the 2022 World Cup instead of watching it at home. He was a Liverpool player throughout that qualifying campaign, establishing himself as one of the Premier League's most dangerous wide forwards. Pace, directness, a left foot of extraordinary quality, and a right foot equally capable of finishing. He was playing at the very highest level of European club football while his international team were watching the World Cup at home. The gap between where he was at club level and where he was at international level was one of sport's great cruelties. He wears the number 7 shirt for Colombia. He is 28 years old, precisely the age at which a wide forward is most dangerous, with pace still intact and experience sharpening every decision. Colombia are ranked 9th in the world by FIFA and were Copa America finalists in 2024, going unbeaten until the final itself. They arrive at the 2026 World Cup as legitimate dark horse contenders. And Diaz, finally competing on the biggest stage, is the player most likely to create the moment that defines Colombia's tournament. Lamine Yamal, Spain, age 18, shirt number 10, and finally the youngest. And perhaps the most exciting of all. Lamine Yamal was 15 years old when the 2022 World Cup was played in Qatar. He was not considered for any squad. He was a teenager at La Masia, Barcelona's famous academy, whose talent was already drawing comparisons with the club's greatest ever players, but who was still by any reasonable measure a child. In the 2 years that followed, something happened that the sport has never quite seen before. Yamal did not simply develop, he exploded. At 16, he became the youngest player in the history of the Spanish national team. At 16, he played at the UEFA Euro 2024 in Germany and was named player of the tournament, producing one of its greatest individual performances. In the semi-final against France on the day before his 17th birthday, he struck a curling left-footed shot from wide on the right touchline that bent into the top corner with a precision and power that left the watching world struggling to find adequate language. He is 18 years old. He wears the number 10 shirt at Barcelona, a shirt whose history at that club represents one of the most extraordinary lineages in football. He has won the Copa Trophy, awarded to the best player in the world under 21 in consecutive years at 16 and at 17. He has won 2 La Liga titles. He has won a European Championship. He has never played at a World Cup until now. Spain are among the tournament's 2 or 3 strongest sides. And Yamal, 18 years old, born in the United States, his birthplace is in the same country where this World Cup is being held, will be making his World Cup debut on the continent of his birth. The narrative writes itself, the talent is undeniable, and if he performs at anything like the level he has shown across the last 2 years, the 2026 World Cup will remember the name Lamine Yamal for a very long time. So, 5 players, 5 first World Cups, 5 different stories of waiting. Erling Haaland scoring 16 qualifying goals and carrying Norway back to the tournament for the first time in 28 years. Martin Odegaard, Norway's captain, the conductor of everything, making his World Cup debut at 27 after a wait that began when he was 5 years old. Florian Wirtz, returning from a torn knee ligament that cost him the 2022 tournament, now wearing the number 10 at Liverpool and ready to show the world who he really is. Diaz, 28 years old, Colombia's most dangerous attacker, finally competing at the tournament his team missed by a single point in 2022. And Lamine Yamal at 18, the European champion, the Copa Trophy winner, making his World Cup debut on the continent where he was born. The wait is over. And for these 5 players in particular, the 2026 World Cup is not just a tournament. It is the moment they have been building toward since the very beginning of their careers. The moment everything has been leading to. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Everything About Football for more analysis, history, and debate. The beautiful game in all its depth.